Time once again for another edition of Tuesdays with Neal. Welcome, sir.
As always, Tuesday or any day, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is one of those lull periods right now for the NFL. We've talked about the schedule. We've talked about the draft. So it gives everybody a chance to settle to see what the landscape is. So let's start with the Steelers. What is the landscape of the Steelers as we head into Memorial Day weekend?
I think, generally speaking, they have to be pretty happy with what they've been able to put together to this point. And it's been a very specific and very targeted approach this offseason. And most recently, they locked up backup quarterback for them on a deal that I haven't seen terms of this yet, but by and large, it's a market deal. And you have him, from what I've gathered to this point, for the next 3 seasons. That's probably a good move with a young quarterback that has some injury history. It's a good idea to get the veteran in there that's played in this offense. I understand they also signed Mason Rudolph, but Rudolph hasn't really played in this offense.
Right.
That was not the offense. The last time Rudolph played, it was not the offense they're playing in now. It's not the same thing. Trubisky has the experience with the structure that they're currently running in. Granted, not a ton, but I think we saw enough in his final performance to say, okay, this situation's probably a better fit for him. He is also probably not going to get a starting opportunity elsewhere, having to start over. Mm-hmm. This is his career path, and it's a very lucrative career path. So a smart move, and I would put that intellectually at the same level as Isaac Seumalo, the guard they signed out of Philadelphia, which is probably their best move this offseason. Not comparing talent or skill or contributory factor, but just philosophically, they fit what this team is building itself to do. And they're both strategic moves, spending wise money the right way on players for a very specific purpose. That seems to be really kind of the theme to this point. And I think they've hit very well. I'm not really confused with any of the moves that they're making. I would say, if anything, some shakeup in the secondary, considering the players they're bringing in, kind of suggests schematic change there. They haven't publicly said that yet, but I don't know what else you are intending to do when you bring in Joey Porter Jr. With Trice as well. These are two press cornerbacks with size, with length. They're looking to play that style of football within their coverage. We'll see how formally that works out. But when you cut Akella Witherspoon after getting a look at the rookies that you just brought in, I would say odds are pretty good that they're looking to implement that different technique from what they've run pretty much since Mel Blount retired. That's a good strategic move for a team that relies heavily on a pass rush. Do something with your secondary to be more aggressive in trying to take away quick game opportunities, which they've gotten gashed on several times over the last couple of years. To do something like that shows they have a solid plan, there's solid reasoning behind it, and they're bringing in the personnel to fit that. I think it's a win on offense for what they did along their offensive line. I think it's a win on defense of what they're doing within their secondary. And these were fairly significant problems, really, over the last, 3 seasons for this team, if not longer. Some would argue forever. This is the right direction for them to go. And they're really putting the team in the best position to succeed possible. Now, does that mean 13 wins? I don't know if they're that talented. I do like what they're doing schematically. I do like what they're choosing to do in terms of personnel. I feel like this can come together pretty well, and at the very least, they'll be a very tough team to beat. Are they going to be somebody that's going to, just burn somebody for 30 points every single game? I don't know. I don't know if they're that talented, but they're going to be a difficult team to prepare for, and they're going to be a difficult team to beat. And I think that's a good spot to be, considering where they have been. They've had to pull off miracles in the second half of the last couple seasons. They should be more competitive right away, and I think that can get them to the double-digit win mark this season. And from there, who knows? I mean, we've seen a lot of upsets in the NFL. Teams are coming on later and playing better football down the stretch. That's really kind of their MO, and I think they can buy a little bit more breathing room this year, unlike the last two seasons where they've had to go gangbusters over the last, 6, 7, 8 games in order to be in a position to either make the playoffs in overtime at the end of the last game played that season, or just miss the playoffs in Week 18 as well. So it a solid move, good direction. I don't know. It's in get into the draft. It's a great draft for what they're trying to do as well. The dividends that they're looking to pay on that, will they get a whole lot back right away from their draft class? Always remains to be seen. We don't know. We love it on paper. Let's see what happens when they get pads on and get out there. But really nothing to not like about the guys that they're bringing in. And I think that should fill them with a good amount of optimism. The team that's on the rise played really well at the end of last year with a rookie quarterback. They got a lot out of him down the stretch. Every reason that we've seen to this point suggests they're going to be a better team this year.
Now we're getting a real feel for what Omar Khan and his front office staff can do because they're shaping this roster. What's your evaluation of them now that you're starting to see it in practical application?
I think that's kind of a two-part, because I say this because everyone wants to credit Khan with everything.
Oh no, yeah, right. It's more. That's why I mentioned the staff. Yeah,
to address it specifically, most people are saying now all these things are happening now that Kevin Colbert's out of the way. One, I'm not even entirely sure he's 100% out of the way. Two, Colbert's front office, in my opinion, probably does all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody comes up to you and says, "We'll take Chase Claypool and we'll give you a second-round pick out of it. We've got a tenuous at best quarterback position in the first year of a new head coach. A second-round pick for a team that is sitting 7th in the second round when they make the trade is a no-brainer. The fact that turned into in a year that there's a one less first-round pick, that's it's a boon. That's not specific to the general manager, because frankly, I don't think any general manager, with the exception of Ryan Poles and the Bears, would not have made that move from the Steelers end of it. And it worked out very well. That they've made, I think these are kind of no-brainers. Does Andy Weidel have say over Siamalu's decision to sign with the Steelers, or does Siamalu see a chance to be a starting player, getting paid a lot of money, playing in an offense that suits his talents very well? He's an RPO guy. They've played in that. Very disciplined. He knows what to do. He brings that veteran savvy. That's really from his perspective, that's a move that's like, they really need you. You're going to be a high value guy on this team. I don't necessarily think that's the front office so much as this is really a no-brainer for both sides. It's a great move. I'm not trying to denigrate anybody or take credit away from anybody for it. I think they've done an excellent job. I'm just saying that I think a lot of these moves are pretty in line with the Steelers' MO when the opportunities are there. We've known that they've been restructuring their offense. They want to run RPOs consistently. In fact, I believe they ran more RPOs than any team in the NFL over the last two seasons. That's going to continue. You can see what they're trying to do. They're getting the personnel to do that. They got a bully of a left tackle, which, to be fair, Kevin Colbert barely ever traded up in the first round, and he never drafted an offensive tackle in the first round. So give Khan credit to where it's due, but I also think that that's kind of a no-brainer move for who Broderick Jones is and what they needed. That move, I think, is fairly routine. Most general managers would think to make that move themselves, but it's another piece to the larger picture that they're putting together. Jones fits in with an RPO mentality as well. They want to run the ball. They want to play quick game themselves. They want to get the ball to playmakers in space. And a guy like Jones might not be the best, drop step, pass protecting left tackle in the league, but he's going to be a bully on day one.
Mm-hmm.
You get him out in space, get the timing down. He releases when he's supposed to release. He's crushing people. You see it all the time on his film. If he does anything, it's that. The guy he's an amazing athlete. A great fit for what they're trying to do. Makes perfect sense. I'd give them nothing short of an A. I mean, they made all the moves that they really needed to make, and they added a little bit as well. You've heard me praise Darnell Washington. I don't think tight end was a position that they expected to address in the draft, but the value of him in the third round is ridiculous, in my opinion. There's no way, unless he's going to play 3 years due to the injuries that he has. Even then, if you can make hay out of that guy for 3 years, I think you're going to get a lot out of it. That makes their sub-package offensive play a lot more versatile. Gives them a lot more depth. There's a lot of things that they can do with a great all-around like Washington is, and a guy that at his core is physical. He's a tough guy to get around. He's a tough guy to cover down the field. That's a great move. It wasn't a position of need if you look at things, but they drafted their positions of need, in my opinion. They got rid of what they needed too early with 3 great picks for where they were taken. To add that kind of a piece for the 4th guy you took in the draft, that's, front office A for me, off season as in free agency, A for the draft as well. You put all that together. I don't think they missed on a move. I don't say that often. I feel good about everybody that they took where they took them.
Agreed, across the board. This is also, we talked about the schedule and across the board what they do with the schedule. The NFL dominates every day, it seems, and they dominate every day in the fall and into the wintertime as well. Is there any thought on your part, Neal, that at some point they're overplaying the hand, or is it they're just that good and they know it?
I think they are that good, whether or not they are overplaying their hand at the same time. I think there comes a point that your end game is not going to be to have professional football with the NFL brand on it every night of the week throughout the entire year. So when do you pull the reins in? When do you say leaving them wanting more is a sound business strategy over a long period of time? Now, every commissioner and every owner that's been there has been a part of some type of expansion within the NFL. That's the sign of a healthy, strong business, which the NFL is. It's a product that people still want. It's a new generation. They've adapted very well to the end of the Manning versus Brady era and the fantasy football, explosion. And they've capitalized on that to use the best of what they have, along with the new talent that's coming in, to kind of, in a way, redesign their product a bit. They've changed the rules up a bunch. People are still watching, still engaged. People are still complaining. These are all things that, believe it or not, are healthy signs of business. People care a lot about the product. So I don't know, in my opinion, and if I was in the boardroom, I would say, do we really need to mess with the schedule more? We want that 18th game. I logically, I would agree. I think an even number balances things out a little bit better. Traditionally, they've done that, so there's historical precedent. It's a negotiating point with the union, which can, whether they get an 18th game or not, they're going to get or be able to avoid something significant from the union. There's value in that, so we'll keep pressing the idea that that's what we want. But as far as the days of the week go, I don't think it's a good idea to really go into more. I think part of the real value of the NFL is that locked-in structure. You talk to fans about why the NHL or the NBA doesn't really interest them, and invariably the conversation comes around to not just the amount of games, but the sporadic nature of them. They're sort of spread out. It's hard to get into a flow and a rhythm. With football, you have it. You know, this can become kind of a center point of your week. You're going to watch your team play on Sunday or Monday or Thursday, but you add in Friday, you add in Saturday. Now it just kind of gets all over the place. And it you know, in a way, this might not be the best way to express it, but in a way, it sobers you up a little bit. It kind of makes you see the whole picture of it. Players are openly complaining about playing on different days and not being able to have that routine themselves. To me, I really, you know, I'm kind of a purist in this way. I think Sunday games with a Sunday night spotlight and a Monday night spotlight makes the most sense for everybody. I think it draws in the most national interest. It's not the most profitable. It's not the easiest way to drum up new broadcast opportunities. And I get that, but at some point you kind of have to say, we don't want to oversaturate. There are so many things that do that, and they'll ride her till she kicks them off and end up probably getting less in the long run than they could have if they just kind of stuck with what they had. Money is still being generated. You know, people are still watching this. You're going to continue to grow, and you have. I don't think that you need a team in London. I don't think that you need games on Tuesday nights.
Nope.
I think that you have what you need in front of you, and your job now is to maintain it. Don't worry about more exposure elsewhere. Let the product speak for itself. Don't try to mess with it too much. That's just me. That's not the pure black and white bottom line business perspective, but I think I have a certain level of insight to this that represents both sides. This might be the best way to go about it, is all I'm saying.
Right. I've got just 2 minutes here, but you work with a lot of young people on your staff at SI.com. When you talk to them, do the vast majority of them stream, or do they do they still go with linear options?
Oh, they stream. They stream. It's the ability to stream for what we do. Said mirrors the fans in a lot of ways, and we probably should be alongside of that. In the second screen experience world, you need to be able to see everything that's going on. Right. So in many cases, usually what it is, whether it's laptop, your phone and TV, but they're watching a game and they have Red Zone channel on. And along with that, they're viewing social media in some way. I think that's sort of the way people are going to consume the NFL product moving forward. And that's a good thing. I think it spreads out a lot more. I'm from the era where you got your local team's games and that was it. It was the coolest thing in the world when we found a Steelers bar in St. Paul when I was like 14 years old, because then we could watch every Steelers game. We didn't get to do that. The streaming option gives you that plus everything else that's going on. And there are a lot more reasons today than there were 20 years ago to be invested in every single game. You have fantasy/gambling, whether that's one component or two. You have a lot of other interests beyond just your team. And I think as media professionals, you need to monitor that and you need to know what's going on everywhere else. But my opinion is it's because that's how fans are consuming it now. So lining yourself up with that is a good idea professionally.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, lining it up like that is the smart move. I think the NFL's been smart because they dabbled with Amazon Prime. Now, they've lost about 40% of their audience doing it. But it's also the beginning spot as well. Neal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the beginning. I mean, that's all it is. And I think it gives them an idea whether it works or not.
You got to test it out. You have to see it. You can't not do it. I mean, streaming isn't the future. Streaming is today. Yeah. So you need to figure out where the challenges are and what you need to do to incorporate that into your brand. Sir, always a pleasure. Definitely. Always a pleasure on my end as well. Thanks.
Well, it is great to have you with us. So. All right, so let's get to this story. I'm a little confused about a couple of things. One being, if you sat back and read the August 18th release, the Black Friday game is in there, as is a Labor Day Sunday night game in there, as is a Black Friday game on CBS. It's all in there and spelled out, so I don't understand what the dramatics happen to be on that part.
Well, I mean, I did report this 2 weeks ago quietly to not offend people on the Black Friday game. Yeah. I'm actually really curious to see who gets in that Labor Day game. Have they announced that, Steve? Who's on the Labor Day?
Have not, but we know it's not Penn State because they have West Virginia the night before.
Right. Yeah, I'm, obviously recruiting's my focus. I love following all the television stuff. I don't know why. It's always just been something I've been very, it interests me. If I wasn't doing this for a living, I would love to be involved in just, television sports and rights and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say, I think it was the first time that's really been thrown out there for all to see. I mean, there was that release. I just don't think many people caught up on it. I mean, we were kind of keeping it on the low because we know some people weren't very happy with it, I would say, the way some things played out. And I was kind of waiting for the people to say 100% this is going to be Penn State, and it's 100% official. But, yeah, it's out there now. I just haven't seen too many. I mean, was it in their release that Penn State is going to play Michigan State in that release?
In the release on August 18th, they said there would be a Labor Day Sunday night game on NBC, that there would be a Black Friday game on NBC, and there would be a Black Friday game on CBS. It's in there for everybody to see, and it also was very plain that Fox gets the championship game in 23, 25, 27, 29, the odd years. CBS gets it 24, 28, and 26 is NBC. So I'm a little confused about what all the hubbub is about 9 months later.
Yeah, I just think I think Penn State fans are surprised. I think that's part of it. I mean, I would say this, so the Black Friday NBC game, from what I understand, is supposed to be on Peacock. So I would be shocked if Penn State is not the CBS game, just because it's Penn State, Michigan State. But of course, that's not announced yet. At the same time, I guess these companies are trying to sell Peacock and all their streaming services. So that's a way for them to try and, nudge major fan bases towards subscribing. But, as we've seen what they've done with Notre Dame, they usually put lesser games on there. Right. So that would make me think that CBS 3:30, Penn State, Michigan State makes a lot of sense. But I think this is just kind of the first time it's really been out there. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard behind the scenes, but just the way, and Pete Thamel pretty much laid this out there. This was kind of done without really informing Penn State it was going to be done. And
that's the issue.
Upset some people. It's a short week, right? And it's at the end of the season, too. It's
right.
a different story.
Yeah.
If it's week one. But, this is the last game of the year when you're already beat up, and now you're asking college kids to slash a day off of everything.
There's only one plus out of it, Ryan. The only plus out of it, to me, if in this situation is it is fall break and there are no classes that week. That's the only thing that, to me, is a plus in all of this. Other than that, it does put Penn State in a tough spot.
Yeah. And, I guess the one perk, if they're in Big Ten championship contention, right, they get a couple extra days out of it. But there's a long way to go until then. So we'll see where it goes. But, I just, even with it, even if it was Saturday, you would still expect it to be a smaller crowd, right. As far as Michigan State's concerned. But I don't know. I just know that people weren't very happy with the way it was handled. And I think Pete's story really was the first one to really throw it out there of, some of the way Kevin Warren handled some things. And I don't know Kevin. I'm not going to sit here and speak poorly of him. I know that Penn State and other schools were, just a little upset with the I don't necessarily the aggressiveness. Obviously, the money is very important, but I think it was just, hey, fill us in on some of these things before you finalize them. And it is kind of what it is now. One thing I will say, Steve, is hold a November night game thing. Do you think fans are? I think fans are open to that more than schools think. What do you think on that?
I think they're open to it more than ever. Remember, the Big Ten never used to play after Thanksgiving, and then they changed that up. I also think that this is where USC and UCLA come in to be part of the solution to all of this, because you have 5 night games in the month of November, because you have to include the Black Friday game. So 5 night games in the month of November in the conference that could be scheduled on NBC. Well, USC can host one. Let's just take this year's dates on November 11th. And the November 18th game, UCLA could host a game. And then USC and UCLA could take up a game against each other as the third one. Then it just leaves 2 to schedule. And to me, that helps solve the problem. That's how I view it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I just know, from reading our message boards, like our fans just want night games, and the I don't want to say the anger of Big Noon Kickoff.
They can't stand it.
I think it's what was that? Sorry.
Is that the fans can't stand it? Big Noon Kickoff, they don't
like
it.
Right. As the media, we're like, oh, it's not too bad for us. We get home in a pizza now, jokingly. But no, I just think when you counter that Big Noon Kickoff part of it, fans are always clamoring for more night games. Just from reading our message boards, man, I think a lot of people are like, hey, what? I don't care. Like, if they get the opportunity to go to a Giants or an Eagles or a Redskins or a Bills game in December, like, they're taking it, And I just think that as we move on with this, change is always, sometimes change comes really fast, and I think that's what some schools, it's been pretty open that Michigan and Ohio State were against this as much as anyone because, hey, let's be honest, they're going to be two of the three teams down the stretch that are in the mix. I haven't heard as much as far as Penn State's upset with November night games, more so that just the whole Black Friday thing and how that was handled. But I do feel like when we get to year 2, 3, 4 of this, the whole night game November thing will die down because I think as people are going to learn, maybe Ohio State fans will learn with that Michigan State being in November 11th. They're still going to sell out the place. It's still going to be a fun time. Fans are still going to be happy. And, you're paying all that money for a reason. Spending time with your family, enjoying those tailgates, those 8 hours leading up to it. That's a big reason why people are dishing out thousands of dollars.
Oh, no question. The tailgate experience is a huge part of it. But what really struck me was Michigan State at Ohio State November 11th, the Black Friday game, Penn State. So they talked about the sacrifices that they were making to make this work. That's fine, because we've seen that before. Again, which one of the big three didn't make a sacrifice? Again.
Right. Yep.
It's never, you notice, Ryan, it's never Michigan. It never is.
You know more than me. I'm not going to. You know more than me on that one. I don't even know how to respond to that.
No, they know. They don't move. They don't. When do they play on Thursdays? When do they play on Fridays? They don't.
That's a good point.
They haven't. Just go back. The problem when you're dealing with an athletic conference, right, that is collegiate, is you have a bunch of people that have the ability to read.
This is my favorite conversation I think we've ever had on air. I love talking this stuff, man. Like, we always just talk recruiting all the time, but we should talk TV stuff more often. Let's do like an hour segment on this. I could go all day.
Oh, no, I would love to do it because we talk a lot about TV on it because the business of this, right? The money is critical. If you're going to maintain 31 sports, you need this money to do this. So the money part I get. What strikes me is the forays into Peacock actually more than the night games. I'm more interested in what they want to do with Peacock because there are more Peacock football games I think than people realize.
10.
Yeah.
It'll be 10.
Yeah. Not a small number.
Yeah, Penn State's going to probably fall on one of those at some point.
Yeah, well, I would sure they would have to at some point, which would be really good for radio. No.
Well, there you go. I'm always tuning into you and Jack anyway. It doesn't matter.
but that's so I don't worry about that. I think again, part of the solution is USC and UCLA for November because you can schedule quality games in prime time in November in Los Angeles. And that takes up 3 of the 5 right there, and I think it actually solves a lot of problems while still giving you quality matchups.
And let's be honest, is it just going to be those two? This is going to be the summer of change. We're going to see another domino or two fall this summer. Whether they go out west or whatever happens with the ACC, there's no way that in 2026 there's not going to be more teams in the Big Ten. I just don't see it happening. And obviously they have to get the right teams, because you can't cut that pie up more and teams lose money. But, I just see, and I understand, say they add Oregon or Washington or whatever, that doesn't really work, with the whole November scene. It's cold up there too. But you can still find more ways to make this work. I still think the ACC is something's happening there. There's just too much talk right now. And I know, get the grant of rights and everything, but, there's 4, 5, 6 teams there, or schools who seem pretty upset about that situation. So this is fun, though. This is why I love college football. The not the drama around it, but just the chaos of it, right? I mean, this is why sites like Blue White Illustrated exist. Because no matter, the season may only be 13, 14 weeks, but there's so much to talk about in the off season, from recruiting to things like this, that this is why we love college football. This is why it's the best sport in the country, without a doubt.
Well, I agree. This is why it becomes a 365 conversation. Tony Petitti has extensive background in media. Everybody, I've never met him. Everybody that I know knows him. Thinks he is one of the brightest bulbs going out there. What can a guy like that mean in terms of smoothing this over and making it right down the road?
Well, he's got to get Michigan to cave a little bit, right? No, I'm just teasing. Obviously, but I mean, I obviously I don't know him too well, Steve. I think he's got a lot on his plate right now.
Yep.
But at the same time, where else would you rather be than sitting in the Big Ten commissioner seat? Obviously, you got a lot of powerful head coaches and powerful athletic directors who all want to do what's best for their school. But I mean, we're still going to be talking about $80 million for a school, right? I mean, there was talk about $100 million. It might be even 85. There's just still going to be a lot of money. And I mean, this is getting a little off topic here. I can't speak to what Tony's really going to do for media relations. I haven't read on it enough, but I still think collective bargaining is coming, and that's why this money is going to be so important in the years ahead.
Yeah. By the way, the losses they're talking about here between COVID and NBC getting it comes out with 14 schools to about $4.5 million per, and it's 16 schools. They wouldn't be included, but it's $4.5 million per school if those losses. But if I'm the Big Ten, one of the things I do say to Mark Silverman at Fox is, we will do everything we can to get you to be one of the college football playoff partners. How about that as a compromise?
And it has to. It has to. I mean, they are too involved in this now. Everything from a Big Ten perspective. But I still think they're going to be involved with other conferences too. I mean, you see the talk today about ESPN pulled out of the Pac-12. And I get it. I mean, they are dishing out some crazy money for the Big Ten, but I just think Fox is too involved here. FS1, FS2, they have a lot of channels they can fill. I just see them not. This can't just be an exclusive Big Ten thing long term. So I think that'll absolutely work. There's going to be plenty of games to go around. ESPN is saving up money though. They passed on the MLS. They passed on Champions League soccer. What they recently passed on? They passed the Pac-12. There's a couple other things, and that tells me they are saving up a lot of money for the playoff, and that's what that's their bread and butter right now.
And the NBA,
college football, of course,
and the NBA, of course, which is, I mean, those two are billions right there. That's billions. They're going to have to pay for each one of them, and that's what they're saving up for. They are not sitting up and saving money for some of the things people think, and they're in the process of laying off staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I Marchand and who's the other guy for SBJ? They're great.
Yeah.
Now, I read those guys all the time. This is why I'm so into this stuff. I love sports media and that whole conversation. But we'll see. I could see a world where the Fox gets some first round games.
Yeah.
I still kind of see a world where ESPN's getting the semifinals and the playoffs. I just think that they are really going to put some serious money into this, but we'll see. I mean, it depends on how much Fox wants to go off some other conferences and things like that. And hey, man, we didn't even talk about basketball and what's going to happen with Big Ten basketball here moving forward. There's a lot of talk about streaming, and there was that talk about how Izzo's a little upset with some things. So Tony's got a lot to figure out, but no doubt about it, 90% of that's going to be all about football.
Yeah, well, basketball is going to have a lot more streaming. And, in fact, the opening night of the Big Ten tournament is going to be streamed.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See,
don't we want to talk about recruiting? They did get a quarterback.
I know. They did get a quarterback.
I'm so used to talking recruiting with you, Steve. You threw me for a loop today.
Oh, I know. But I wanted to talk about this because I know you're so into it. But
I love it.
But he is a good quarterback, so.
Yes, Ethan Grunkmeyer. We'll talk about him here for a second, just because he was in State College this past weekend.
Yeah.
Earned an invite to the Elite 11 finals. That's 3 straight years now. The Penn State's going to have a top guy out there at the Elite 11 finals. 6'2", 190-ish from Olatangi outside of Columbus. Lot to like, man. I'll say this. He trains with Brad Mandler, who, of course, is known, in Ohio as the guy who, not going to say created Drew Aller, but really kind of made Drew Aller into the player he is. And seeing him yesterday, look, there's a lot of differences between Drew and Ethan physically, but the release, the off-platform throws, the little things that Mandler has kind of, really taken a lot of guys. Ryan Montgomery's known. There's a lot of recruits who are being recruited off of Brad now. You could really see it in Ethan yesterday, and into some of the little things that are similar with Drew. Of course, again, there's a lot of differences there. I do like Ethan as an athlete. Ran like a 4.8-ish yesterday, 4.4 shuttle. There's some good things there. Not a crazy athlete, not a Tracy Swirl or anything like that, but an absolute quality player. We have him as a 3-star at the moment. I really see him moving up in the ratings. One other guy too who was here this weekend, Luke Reynolds, tight end committed to Penn State. I left there yesterday as impressed with Luke Reynolds as anybody there, and obviously Grunkmeyer had a lot of our attention. He's a player out of New England who was a quarterback actually a year ago. Ends up transitioning to tight end. Another guy with off the record measurables, running a 4.7. I think he had almost a 4.3 shuttle, something like that. This is a true athlete here. I don't want to compare him to Mike Gesicki because those are incredibly high bars, but some of his numbers are really stacking up. Actually, his numbers are incredibly similar to Joey Schlaffer, who of course just enrolled not that long ago. But Penn State had 2 really good committed players at the Elite 11 yesterday, and 2 guys who, I wouldn't be shocked at all if we're looking at this in a month or two, and they're both 4-star players.
Glad we slipped that in. You need to go get the kids.
Is it that time already?
Yeah.
Let's talk. What else do we want to talk? NFL rights? Dude, the schedule just came out. That was so much fun. But maybe we'll set it for another day.
Let's set another day where you've got all this time, and then we can go through all these. Because to me, the NBA contract, the college football playoff contract, and even to the side the Notre Dame contract are just behemoth contracts, especially the first 2, and that's what they're all saving up money for.
For sure. It's going to be interesting, Steve. But yes, my wife is reminding me. I just checked my text messages. She's saying, "Are you going to go get the kids?" So I'm going to drop off right now. Steve, great talking to you. Hey, we got 4 weeks of official visits coming up, almost 45 players set to visit throughout June, so I'm sure we'll catch up here in a couple weeks. All right?
Sounds great. Go get the kids.
Take care, Steve. Good talking to you.
Ryan Snyder. On3.com, Blue White Illustrated.